have this crazy health goal. I want to live to be 104. However, based on current statistics, that dream seems pretty grim. According to researchers, by 2050, new cancer rates are expected to rise by up to 77%. Now, cancer used to be a disease of the elderly, but not anymore. Within less than 20 years, between 1990 and 2019, the global incidence of early onset cancer, so getting cancer when you're younger, increased by 79%. 50% of the population has high blood pressure, which not only puts you at risk for things like heart disease, but also stroke and kidney dysfunction. And up to 40% of 18 to 44-year-olds have insulin resistance, which is a super important precursor to type 2 diabetes. To be honest, the idea of becoming a centenarian sounds pretty freaking cool, but I'm also more concerned with health span than I am with lifespan. While lifespan measures the amount of years that you live, health span is more concerned with the quality of those years. And that is why I have been living intentionally in the hopes of preventing chronic disease and thriving with vibrant health well into old age. In this video, we are going to be covering 3 different health myths that could cost you years, because once you're aware of them, you can take steps to create meaningful change. Myth number 1 is that diet and exercise alone will both fix and prevent all of your health problems. Don't get me wrong, they are beneficial for just about everything, but in order to get to the root cause of health issues, we do need to look beyond diet and exercise by themselves. If you have genuinely been trying to improve your health, you've been exercising more, you've been eating more whole foods, and it seems like it hasn't worked, it might not be your fault. And we're going to talk about 2 reasons for this. The first one is that you may be being exposed to toxins that can impact your physical health, or you could be eating foods and doing exercises that aren't what your unique body need at this point in time. So let's talk about toxins. Our bodies are really resilient, and they developed evolutionarily in order to always be working to keep us safe and healthy. So one of the ways that it does this is that if we are exposed to certain toxins, we will actually put on weight. And the reason why that happens is because instead of that toxin being free floating all around our body, it actually gets trapped in our fat tissue so that it's not wreaking havoc on us as a whole. One example of this is heavy metals. I had a patient who out of nowhere, she put on all of this weight, and it ended up being because she had heavy metals in one of her amalgam fillings. Her filling had opened without her realizing it, and so she was getting a constant mercury load being added to her body. So that's why she had put on all of this weight. Her body was just trying to protect her. Another example is that there are certain molds that can increase our estrogen levels. So if you're having hormonal imbalances, it could not be due to any foods that you're eating or anything that you're doing wrong. It could be that you're being exposed to molds that are actually impacting your hormones. So aside from toxins, you could also just be eating foods that are generally considered healthy for most people, but they're not healthy for you. One really obvious example of this is that walnuts are super great for brain health and they have healthy fats, but I have a coworker who would have an anaphylactic reaction to them. Another example of this is bone broth. Bone broth has been all over social media because it is loaded with protein and collagen, and obviously that's really healthy, but for people who have something called mast cell activation syndrome, histamine and bone broth can actually exacerbate their symptoms. So if you're feeling inflamed or just in general not great after you eat, it could be that your body just isn't really jiving with the food that you're putting in it, even if it's food that is considered healthy for most people. And in the same vein, things like HIIT workouts are considered to be super good for people, and they are, but if you are already having really high stress levels in your life and your cortisol levels are already through the roof, doing something really intense like a HIIT workout is actually going to further increase that cortisol level, and it's going to make you feel inflamed and just overall not your best. So if you're trying your best to get healthy and no matter what you do, it's not cutting it, it's worth getting curious and checking what else might be going on. And there's a couple of ways that you can do this. One of them is just to do some self-experimentation. So keep a symptom journal. You can write down the workout that you do and how you feel the day or the next day of. You can write down some of the foods that you're eating or some of the other general habits that you have and see how they might be impacting you. Or you might even notice that when your living situation changes, all of a sudden you start to have a lot more brain fog, you're not sleeping as well, and there's nothing else that changed besides where you lived. So that could be a clue that maybe you're being exposed to new allergens, maybe there's mold in that place. So it's just good to get curious about what your symptoms might be telling you. Another thing that you can do is see a provider who is trained in functional or integrative medicine, who might be able to run some testing to see what might be at the root of some of the issues that you're having. And that brings me to myth number 2. Checkups with your regular doctor once, maybe twice a year, doing regular labs is not enough to achieve optimal well-being. I feel super grateful that I grew up going to the doctor on a regular basis. Felt like once a year I got to just like catch up with a friend, but we would talk about health stuff. Even though I'm a huge proponent of going to see your doctor, getting a regular physical, this still is not enough to achieve optimal well-being. And there's a few reasons why. Part of it is that because of the insurance models, doctors have to spend less and less time with you. At my last physical, my doctor legitimately spent 10 minutes with me, and I was a brand new patient. So that included reviewing my chart, doing my history, reviewing my old labs, and doing my assessment. She literally asked me if I have any skin issues. And I'm like, I don't know, do you want to check? But she couldn't because she didn't have. And another reason is that traditional medical school, they're trying to squeeze so much in that they're really focused on how to care for patients who are already sick, not necessarily how to keep patients well. To show this, I'm going to use myself as a case study. So last year I started at a new job. It's an integrated medicine clinic. I really like it, and we do this really long comprehensive list of labs, but I didn't have great health insurance, and so I had to pay for labs out of pocket, and consequently I just did like the most important ones. Pretty much like 90% of those came back pretty normal. Fast forward a year later, I got better health insurance basically as soon as I could. I think like the day after my health insurance kicked in, I got the full panel of labs done. Everything that was normal last year is still normal this year. However, all of the like 50 other labs that we checked, there are so many things wrong. My viral load is high, my inflammatory markers are high, there are some genetic markers that didn't look great, and I would not have had any of that data or known any of that information had I not done these specialty labs. And by the way, those did get covered by insurance, so it's not like insurance isn't covering them, it's just that doctors don't really know to order them. This is kind of a double whammy because aside from the fact that we're just exposed to more things nowadays, we also can't only rely on the traditional medical system in order to help us stay healthy. You can't fix what you don't know is going on, and you can't get to the root cause of issues if you're only going through the traditional medical model. So just like we already talked about, because of our increase in toxic burden and how diet and exercise aren't going to be enough, you really should be seeing a provider who specializes in things like integrative or functional medicine so that they can be checking you to see what else needs to be addressed. And I realize that this can be a really sensitive issue because while there are certain things that are covered under the umbrella of insurance, when you go to a functional medicine provider, a lot of them don't actually accept insurance, so there can be a cost barrier, and in a future video we can definitely talk about ways to try to work around that. The last myth about what can impact your long-term health and what's really going to move the needle, you're probably not expecting this one. It's that health is only about your physical well-being, and that basically the only things that matter are like the numbers on a scale or the numbers on a lab. A Harvard longitudinal study that has been going on for 90 years showed that the number one predictor of health and happiness throughout the lifespan, it's not how much money you make, it's not your weight, it's not your genetics, it's actually the quality of your relationships. This makes total sense to me because we all know that stress can have a huge impact on our health, and we all know that the people that we're around, especially our partners that we're around like basically 24/7 and the majority of our lives, that they can have an impact on our health just like we can have an impact on theirs. Who we choose as partners can either mitigate or aggravate our stress levels. Imagine coming home from like a really long, horrible day at work, and you're approaching your door and you're like, shoot, my partner's home, maybe they went to the gym and I'll get lucky and I can just come in and do my thing. You come home, there's dishes everywhere, you have to make dinner, your partner is like not paying attention to you. You make dinner, but you eat dinner by yourself because they're doing something else. They're busy, and then you go to bed and you're so sad, you feel so lonely, but it's become so normal that you don't even realize it anymore. Now imagine that same long, strenuous day at work, but you come home, your partner's checking in, they already made dinner, you have dinner together, they ask you about your day, you can talk about things, and you go to bed feeling so seen and loved and supported. We've all heard that you are the culmination of the 5 people that you hang around the most. But I actually challenge that the biggest influence with this is your partner. They're the ones that are going to to be there the majority of the time that you're home, that you're going to the grocery store, that you're going to the gym maybe, and they're going to be impacting a lot of your decisions. They're going to be the ones that when you're craving something crunchy and you really want some chips, they're going to be like, maybe I should cut you some carrot sticks instead. So if you want to extend your health span and add years to your life, you need to start working with a practitioner that's going to look at your overall well-being, including helping you make dietary and exercise choices, but also looking at your toxic load and what's likely going to be impacting you in the future. And you also need to choose a partner who's going to support you in actively becoming your favorite version of yourself. If you want to hear more about how your environment is impacting your health and your physical well-being, and you want to be empowered to reduce your exposure and make better decisions, go ahead and click this video.